Yeah. Okay, oh, and you have three. I gotta make sure and mute my thing here.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bruce Scanlon. It's 4 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and hold off a few minutes before I kick things off and let a few more people get signed on. So feel free to just kind of hang out here for the next 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll get started. If you have any questions or things that you want to share early on in the process, you're welcome to utilize the chat box at the bottom of the screen, and you can enter information in there, just making sure that you're sharing that with everyone so that everyone can see what the questions might be. All right, so we'll hold off for a minute and we'll get started. Welcome, everybody. So we've got several people that have joined us today. Thank you for sitting in. My name is Bruce Scanlon. I am the manager at Ochoco Irrigation. I hope that you can all hear me fine and see me at least in a very small little screen for a lot of us. This is new. This is different. This isn't something that we've done before here at OID, and so I hope that it works out well for you. Those of you that are familiar with Zoom, this is nothing new, as we've kind of entered into a different way of life in this COVID world. Feel free to please mute yourself so that we don't get any background noise. And if you're having any challenges with your bandwidth, then it's always easier to stop sharing video, and it tends to help to make a difference on that case. If you have any issues or anything, you can ask questions or share information in the chat box, and I'll try to monitor that while I'm going through things. You can also call the main office here at OID, and somebody can answer the phone and relay information to me if we're having any issues or problems. And you can also, towards the bottom of the screen, you'll see a series of prompts. There's a security, there's participants. You'll see there's 16 of us here together. There's the chat function. I have a share screen and a recording, so I just wanted to let you know we are recording this, and I will try to get it uploaded to our website in some form as soon as possible. Then I think you also have a reactions button on the bottom right, and if you want to raise your hand, if you have a question, you can use that, and that'll kind of alert me to what might be going on there. So the plan for today is for me to kind of go through the current status of water year 2021 and give you the opportunity to kind of see the decision making that has gone on behind the allocation for this year and the way that operations will move forward. And then we'll go through some questions, and we'll have a question and answer time as well. So the first thing I want to do is show you a PowerPoint. I'm going to share my screen. I hope that those of you that are on your computers, iPads, tablets, etc., can see it. If you're just on the phone, you may have a hard time. I'll try to kind of talk my way through some of these slides. And if you have questions or something, the chat function can work, or save them towards the time when we do have questions. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get ready to talk to you about this. Show you a PowerPoint, and we'll navigate through this fairly quickly, and we'll leave plenty of time for you to ask questions or have any issues that you might have. So on this screen, this is the kind of information that we go over on a monthly basis, and actually as a staff, we go over it all the time. This is the current state of our reservoirs and our streams, both incoming and outgoing. And you'll see that on the left is the list of those facilities. In the center is an abbreviation of the telemetry site on the Hydromet that we get that data from. You'll see the data listed for currently at May 1st, when I downloaded all this information. And then last year on May 1st, what did everything look like? So as you can see, we'll just kind of go through this real quickly. Right now, or basically currently, Mill Creek is running very similar to the way that it ran last year at about 20-22 CFS. Ochoco Creek is significantly lower at only 13 CFS. So combined, that accounts for the vast majority of inflows to Ochoco Creek. So right now we're at about 34 CFS coming into the facility. You'll also see that the Ochako Reservoir acre feet storage is at 11,000. Oh, I apologize. That should be 11,379, not 116,000. Yeah, that would be fabulous. Well, no, we'd be all underwater, but that would be fabulous if we had a lot more. Last year it was 23,000 on 1st of May. And the Ochako Canal, this weekend we had it running at 29 CFS. Last year at this time we were running 63 CFS. Ochako Creek outflows right now running at 7.5 CFS, and last year running at 13. So you can see significantly lower 50% or more outflows that we're trying to manage the system with. Crooked River inflows significantly lower than last year and average at 111 CFS this weekend. Last year, this time it was 244. Prineville Reservoir is also exceptionally low at 90,000 acre feet. And last year it was over 112,000 acre feet. Coming out of the reservoir into the Crooked River, that's the PRVO gauge. We have 189 coming out today. And last year at this time, we had 330. And the Crooked River Canal that we're diverting the same amount out of Prineville Reservoir. Here's a snapshot of Prineville Reservoir on the hydromet. The blue line shows you the current year. Water year goes from October through September. The previous year is the green dotted line, and average is the red dotted line. So last year was not a good year. This year is an even worse year than last year when it comes to our active storage. We did see better inflows this year than we saw last year, but we had such a significant deficit that we didn't even come up to close to where we were last year. Now over to Ochako, where it gets a little bit worse. The current year storage in Ochako Reservoir, as I mentioned, is just over 11,000 acre feet. Last year, we had about 24,000 acre feet at this time. You'll notice that the curve here on the average year usually is a fairly steep, significant curve. In the previous year, it was a very slight runoff, and we stored very little water last year. This year, you can see it's a little bit better, but it's still significantly below what we would consider as an average year of runoff. We also frequently go over snow and precipitation reports. We monitor 3 SNOTEL sites. Durr Meadows is up in the Ochako National Forest, north of Little Summit Prairie, and it's a good indicator for us of what's coming into the Crooked River and to Prineville Reservoir. Ochako Meadows is our SNOTEL near Walton Lake that tells us about Ochako Reservoir. And Snow Mountain is way out on the east side of the drainage that also gives us some indication of the higher elevations of snow that are available into the system, typically later in the year. And you can see, obviously, that there is no snow at any of those elevations, at any of those SNOTELs. You can also see on the far right that our precipitation this year is significantly below average. I don't have to tell you how dry things are, of course. I also wanted to share with you a historical perspective. This is a little bit about Prineville Reservoir and the lowest levels of storage that are on record. The lowest was in 1992, where it was just under 80,000 acre feet was recorded on April 20th. And And that was the precursor to the worst year. The second worst year was the year before, I mean, was in 1991, and that was 82,000 acre feet. Where we're at right now with peak inflow, with peak storage at about 91.2 to the day of allocation, was the third lowest on record for the history of Prineville Reservoir. Ochoco is, like Prineville Reservoir, a snowmelt and runoff dependent reservoir. All of our reservoirs are fully dependent upon snow and runoff. We have very little of our system that is spring fed whatsoever. When we look at the runoff on Ochoco, as I mentioned in the previous diagram, in the 1920 storage year, we only saw 4,000 acre feet of water stored between essentially October and April. And if you combine that with this year, we saw a total runoff of about 5,800 acre feet of water stored in the facility between October and April. That combined gives us the 9,800 acre feet. And a yearly average for that facility is between 18 to 20,000 acre feet. So in 2 years, we got about half of what we would normally get in 1 year. And you can kind of get the picture that things are not really good in terms of Ochoco and what it's seen in the last couple of years. There's some factors that influence runoff. One of them obviously is snow, and we monitor the snow water equivalent. The district staff visits those snow-tail sites and measures different snow courses throughout the winter season to keep an eye on what that is. This year it wasn't a factor, but most years we have to worry about flood control and anticipating how much runoff we're going to get so that we can be ahead of the game and release flows to avoid a flood. Well, we haven't had to worry about that the last couple of years. Even though the snow water equivalent was average or slightly better for much of the year, we did not see that come into the facilities. And there's a few factors why. One of them was because of temperature. Throughout the typical runoff, late winter and early spring, we saw temperatures that caused a mild thaw, and then at night they got to freezing or below in the 20s, and it froze things back up again. Excuse me. And with this kind of freeze thaw, it releases the water really slowly. And so the water just kind of trickles and seeps into the ground. And the precipitation during the spring was some of the lowest on record. And the 45 days prior to the last rain event were the 45 driest days on record in the spring in this area. And then the soil moisture, as you know, if you've been out in the woods or even digging around in the ground earlier in the spring, it's been very, very dry. Crook County is currently listed in the extreme category for drought, and we have been for a prolonged period of time. And all of those factors together have really limited the amount of storage that we were able to acquire in Ochoco and Prineville reservoirs. So in Ochoco, historically, the most recently, since 1980, they've done a good job of keeping accurate records through the Bureau of Reclamation. But historically, this year is the lowest active storage that we have in recent times, at just about 11,600 acre feet. The other two lowest recorded storages were 92 and 91. You'll see those, of course, similar to the drought that you saw during that time and its impacts on Prineville Reservoir. But what's interesting to note is that in 91 and 92 were pre-modifications that were made to Ochako Reservoir, where they raised the inlet to the tower about 30 feet. And that inlet modification that the Bureau conducted created a dead pool of about 5,800 acre feet. And so when you look at the numbers for 92 and 91, they actually had all of that for active storage. For us, we have about 6,000 acre feet is all for active storage that will actually just run into our facility. Compared to those significant drought years, we have about half of what they had to manage and deal with. At the April 19th district board meeting, the district set the following allocation based upon the information that I shared with you and knowledge and experience from previous managers, board chairs, board directors, etc. They started the irrigation season April 20th. The allocation out of Ochako is our district is split into two different allocations. And the Ochako only allocation was 1 acre foot per acre. And the remainder of the district was set on a sustained flow duty. And that rate was set at 0.70 CFS per 100 acres. And on Combs Flat, the small area to the southeast portion of the district, it was set at 1.5 acre feet per acre. And the district also decided to run subdivisions at a reduced rate and every other week to help to make it through the majority of the season. To explain why we went through this this process and how we arrived at a split allocation, as well as the allocations that we have, you have to understand that the irrigation district is not served equally between Ochako and Prineville reservoirs, and we rely upon both of these facilities. So here is a map showing the irrigation district boundary, that yellow line that's around Prineville. So right here in the middle is the town of Prineville. You can see Barnes Butte here. Far to the east is going to be the Ochako Reservoir to the south, and off the screen is Prineville Reservoir. Here's the Crooked River traveling to the west out the left side of the screen. And Grizzly will be up here in the northwest corner, and Mackay coming in at the center on the top. The district divides itself into 3 distinct rides. Ride 1 on the east side of the district is approximately 5,000 acres, and it takes up Barnes Butte and everything east. The why that is significant is because that portion of the district can only receive Ochako Reservoir water. It has no access to Prineville Reservoir water. So whatever water they get has to come from Ochako Reservoir. And now you can kind of start to do the math. If you've got 5,000 acres there, and you've only got 6,000 acres of water to deliver, and you have about a 20%, 20 to 30% loss when it comes to seepage losses, to evaporation and mismanagement. We're about 1 acre of delivery of that water. So that's how we arrived at that. To expand even further, if you look at rides 2 and 3, those 2 rides are going to be served by Prineville Reservoir water exclusively. And in order to serve those people, we have to pump water from the Crooked River. So there is a diversion in the Crooked River that takes water to town Down behind Rite Aid is a significant pump plant. That pump plant has a capacity to lift about 135 CFS. We lift that water up here towards the Barnes Butte, and it winds its way up past Barnes Road. And then we have what's called the relift plant. And at that plant, we can lift about 95 to 100 CFS of water on a good day. So our system is limited in how much water we can put in it every day from the Crooked River and Prineville Reservoir. That's how we determine the rate and duty at which we set the rest of the system. In order for us to deliver to those nearly 14,000 acres, over 14,000, nearly 15,000 acres of irrigable land, we couldn't do it on a normal operational system, a demand system. If people ordered water in the traditional sense that they would order it and in the traditional amount that they ordered it, there would never be enough to get towards halfway through the system and out to the end of the ditch, where a lot of patrons would be very, very dry. So we did calculations, and we've been trying to figure how we can spread that water out. And that's how we came up with the allocation that is similar to the way that they did things back in the early 90s with the previous drought that I've kind of described to you so far. So I thought I would, after that, kind of go through some frequently asked questions, kind of knock off some of these things that some of you might already have in place, and see if I can't explain them a little bit. And then I'll open things up for additional questions and clarification that anybody might have. So how do we figure out the number of sprinklers that you can use? So we took the 70 hundredths per 100 acre, and we used what we consider a typical sprinkler, which is a 5-gallon per minute nozzle, to determine how many sprinklers can be used at one time. And so if you're using smaller nozzles that run less, and they can, you can redo those calculations. You can figure out how many gallons per minute that you're using and calculate it that way. And obviously the OID staff would help you with that. We may ask you how you arrived at that, and or why you have more sprinklers coming, and we may check those, but provided that everything is above board, there's not going to be any problem with running more sprinklers if you use reduced nozzles. And so that's how we came up with that number. I know some people, especially in subdivisions, are using those little pop-up like Rainbird type sprinklers, and those are significantly lower than a 5-gallon traditional irrigation sprinkler. And so when we hopefully now have been able to kind of clarify with most people what a sprinkler is and what those calculations are. And so one of the challenges that people have is, how am I supposed to reduce that? My system's hard set, it's in the ground, and they're right. Yeah, this is a challenging circumstance. There's no two ways about it. The only advice that we have is there are ways to install parts and components to an irrigation system to close off different sections, to plug or cap sprinklers, or remove sections of wheel lines or hand lines or parts of the system. And there's a thing called a VFD, a variable frequency drive, that can be put on pumps, irrigation pumps, that are expensive up front, but there are incentives and rebates that are available. And over time, they reduce energy costs through pumping. And so if somebody did something like that, it could help to reduce the cost over time. Not a whole lot of good recommendations here, but there are some ways that can work for some people. Another question is, you may have heard that people are working together to pool their water and rotate their irrigation. And this can be a good way for people to share the resource that they have available to them. So if you have a neighbor who's on the same ditch as you, that has a certain allotment of water and certain number of acres and certain number of sprinklers that they can use at a given time, you can definitely pool your resources. And if you've got 10 acres and they've got 10 acres, together you've got 20 acres. You put that together, and whenever your neighbor is watering, you don't water. And whenever they're watering, whenever you're watering, they don't water, vice versa, basically. And so that's one way. We just ask that you communicate that to the district office and or the ditch writer of how that's going to work. And the ditch writers will keep a list of who's doing that and when people are on and off. Some people may be wondering, why am I paying the same amount for water and I'm not getting water? And that seems to be a fairly, common complaint. But the reality is you're not really paying for the water itself. Your assessment pays for your water right and the operation of the district. The district does not guarantee that you have water. Obviously, we can't control what comes into the reservoir. God takes care of that for us. The decision that's set by the board decides how much water is available and how it's going to be distributed throughout the district. The board sets the start date and the end date, depending upon what those resources are available to them. And obviously, we try to share things equally across the district to whatever extent possible. The system doesn't always allow for equity and complete fairness, but we try to spread things out and spread the love and as well as the pain. You may also understand that the operational costs are still the same, whether we're delivering 1 foot of water or 3 feet of water. We have all the same people doing all the same things and all the same equipment working and doing all the work behind the scenes. And for us to be able to basically provide your protection for your water right, to help to secure and maintain that and deliver it is how we spend those resources that have been stewarded to us. And I think that's all of the FAQs that I have. I definitely want to open things up a little bit for people that need some additional questions, clarifications. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I don't see anything in the chat box. All right, well, we seem to be kind of winding down and we're getting close to an hour here. So I'll just wrap it up. And again, thank you all for kind of engaging in this conversation. This is a tough gig. I'm not gonna sugarcoat anything. The district has never been in this kind of a position before, and the cropping that we have, being significantly grass, hay, alfalfa, that's very thirsty, creates significant challenges. In previous drought years, like 91, 92, and historically, they've had different cropping. And some of those crops have not been near as thirsty, and especially at different times of the year. When you talk about things like wheat or garlic or mint or other types of things that frequently will give us a little bit of a reprieve at different times during the season, hay is not so forgiving. And so we are definitely in a very unique experience for the irrigation district and for a lot of these patrons. A lot of people have moved to this area and weren't born and raised here. And it is challenging to irrigate in the high desert. When we rely almost solely 100% on snow melt and runoff, and the last 2 years have been a perfect storm of not getting either, we've been kind of set up. My hope is that there's not a third year. Unfortunately, sometimes these things do come in threes. And so it could be a challenging one next year. I hope that we aren't in the same boat. I hope that we get out of this and out of it quickly. But I'm not going to make that promise to you. The last couple of things, I did see a couple of more questions, and so I'll try to answer those before I wrap things up. Heather said, is there a place we can go to get info on what kind of sprinklers we have and how to calculate? Yeah, there's different things on the web to help calculate those. You can also measure the nozzles themselves, or if depending upon the type that you have, if you have like landscape type of sprinklers, those pop-up type, then you can talk to a landscaper about that and what those deliver in gallons per minute. We've also referred people to the local feed stores and specifically Ochiko Feed, and their experience with irrigation is significant. And if you're going to replace some nozzles, you can do so by getting in there and purchasing some reduced flow nozzles, maybe going to 4 or 3 gallon per minute heads that will allow you to extend your line and to utilize more sprinklers. Also, Debbie asks, we have a 3-horse pump and can only run 3 sprinklers. How's that going to work? And it's a legit question. I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know if you can use that pump on that system without creating too much pressure and damaging the line. You'll have to ask a pump professional what the pump curve is, what the pressures are, and what can be done with that. And then, of course, as I mentioned, being able to partner with other individuals so that you can use more sprinklers when they're not using their sprinklers to share in that. Those are about the only recommendations that I have when it comes to how to manage an oversized pump for what we're trying to deliver. There are numerous resources throughout the internet. The Extension Office, Mylan Boley, and those folks down there are a great resource for you to reach out to on how to do that. I see that Jim's shared some information in the chat box as well. He says flows in the OSU paper on irrigation and application rates and depth. Washington State, yes, is another good resource. They have an irrigation department there, and we did a workshop here for our ditch riders early this spring, and Washington State professors led that as well. So they're a really good resource too. I agree with you on that one, Jim. All right. Well, thank you guys again. I hope that I get to meet you guys face to face very soon. And the office line is open and available. Unfortunately, we got a lot of people asking the same questions that you guys are, and we're all in it together. We're all going to learn something this year. I guarantee you I will. Thank you. I do have a desire to get this recording uploaded. I don't have the technical experience to figure that out yet. I probably have to watch a YouTube video to figure out how to post to YouTube. So that's my next thing to accomplish, and hopefully we'll get you there. All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate all of you, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions or comments. Thanks again.